Before I even reached that side, your tail was tapping on the floor, like every promise had arrived. I picked the leash up from the wall. You stood so still to help me through. The hallway held the afternoon, and all that brightness waited too. I opened up the door halfway. The air came in without a sound. You leaned ahead, already gone. I kept one hand close to the ground. Palm to pavement just for a second, long enough to know we were not going yet. You looked up at me, I looked down the street. Nothing had gone wrong, it was only not time yet. I filled your water to the line and moved the bowl into the shade. The leash went back onto its hook, almost exactly where it stayed. Outside, the parked cars held the sun. The sidewalk shone along the block inside. You circled once and lay with one eye facing toward the lock. The clock moved on without our help. The room grew quieter by degrees. I left the curtain where it was and let the afternoon just be. Palm to pavement just for a second, long enough to know we were not going yet. You looked up at me, I looked down the street. Nothing had gone wrong, it was only not time yet. Maybe later when the walls stop growing brightness through the hall. Maybe when the metal rail doesn't hold the day at all. No promise made, no promise made, no plan revised, no plan revised. Just one small pause we recognized. Palm to pavement, only a moment, long enough to know we could leave it there. You settled near me, the leash stayed hanging. Nothing needed fixing, we just had time to spare. The door stayed closed, the hook stayed full. The afternoon kept moving like it always would. You waited by the doorway again before I reached the handle first. The leash was hanging where it was while sunlight filled the hall with heat. I filled your water to the line. You watched me from the hallway shade. The bowl became our first small stop before another plan was made. Nothing changed all at once, nothing needed explaining. The day kept moving anyway. I put the leash back on the hook, not because we gave it up, only because the sidewalk still had somewhere else to be. You looked once toward the door, then somewhere else instead. Some days are made for waiting without feeling left behind. The window stayed a little wide, the curtain moved above the floor. You crossed the room without a sound and stopped looking at the door. The brightest part was still outside, but it did not ask for us. We let the afternoon grow older without trying to rush. Nothing changed all at once, nothing needed explaining. The room became enough for now. I put the leash back on the hook, not because we gave it up, only because the sidewalk still had somewhere else to be. You looked once toward the door, then laid your head back down. Some days are made for waiting without counting every hour. We will know when it is time without asking ground again. The evening always finds us even when it takes its time. No promise lost, no plan undone. The day was only passing the way it always does. I put the leash back on the hook, and somehow it felt lighter. Not every pause is empty, not every plan is laid. The door will still be there, so will everything beyond it. Today was only waiting, tomorrow stayed the same. The hook stayed by the door, the leash stayed where it was. You slept beside the hallway while the afternoon moved on. The ice has almost lost its shape, but still enough to cool the glass. The fan keeps turning at the same unhurried speed as every day. The book is open where it was, I haven't reached another page. The sunlight slowly leaves the rug without announcing it has changed. Nothing has to hurry now, nothing has to be decided. The afternoon keeps passing by. I don't need to count the hours, they are moving anyway. Little things keep changing places even when I look away. The room gets quieter somehow without becoming still. Time has always known the way, long before I will. The shadow reaches one more chair, the brightest wall begins to fade. The window lets a softer breeze replace the warmer air. The ice is gone before I know, the glass is only water now. I never saw the moment change, it simply happened somehow. Nothing has to hurry now, nothing has to be decided. The afternoon keeps passing by. I don't need to count the hours, they are moving anyway. Little things keep changing places even when I look away. The room gets quieter somehow without becoming still. Time has always known the way, long before I will. Some things arrive without an entrance, some things leave without goodbye. Maybe that's how the day keeps turning without asking us to notice why. I don't need to count the hours, they are moving anyway. Even quiet afternoons find their own direction. Nothing stayed the way it was, though I never watched it change. The evening found the window before it found my name. The fan keeps turning, the room keeps breathing, the day keeps going without a sound. drew longer lines today across the edge of every stone. The shade reached farther down the street than I remembered yesterday. I never thought to measure it until it crossed the painted curb. The afternoon kept speaking first without a single word. Nobody pointed anything out, nobody had to say. The light was slowly changing in its ordinary way. The shadow reached the other side before I noticed it had. It crossed the street so quietly without asking to be seen. The sidewalk looked the same until it suddenly didn't. Nothing made an announcement, it simply kept moving. The benches held a cooler edge, the trees covered one step more. A place that used to catch the sun stayed comfortable instead. Someone crossed without a pause, the dogs walked closer to the light. The evening found the neighborhood a little sooner than before. Nobody pointed anything out, nobody had to say. The light was slowly changing in its ordinary way. The shadow reached the other side before I noticed it had. It crossed the street so quietly without asking to be seen. The sidewalk looked the same until it suddenly didn't. Nothing made an announcement, it simply kept moving. Maybe change has always been this quiet all along, not arriving all at once, only staying long enough. The shadow reached the other side long before I looked. The evening found the neighborhood without making a sound. The day had already changed before I thought to ask. Some things never hurry, they simply arrive. The shade kept stretching, the street kept breathing. I only noticed near the end. I hadn't touched the window yet. My hand was halfway to the frame. The curtain lifted from the sill, then slowly settled back again. The room was warm the way it was. The afternoon still filled the wall, but one loose corner crossed the light and brushed the table as it fell. The latch was still beneath my hand. The glass was cooler than before. A little air had found the room without my opening the door. The curtain moved before I did. A little from the wall, it crossed the edge of afternoon, then settled where it was. A paper shifted on the desk. Your ears turned at the sound. I stood there with my hand half raised while air moved through the room. The corner of a receipt lifted once beside the cup. The hallway lost its heavy warmth before I thought to look it up. I opened the window one more inch. The curtain brushed across my sleeve. The fan was turning just as slow, but now the room could almost breathe. The latch was resting in my hand. The glass no longer held the heat. A small draft crossed the wooden floor and reached the other side of me. The curtain moved before I did. A little from the wall, it crossed the edge of afternoon, then settled where it was. A paper shifted on the desk. You lifted up your head. I left the window as it stood and watched the fabric bend. The curtain crossed my arm again. The covering dried beside the plate. The hallway carried cooler air a little farther than it had. I didn't need to name the change or check how long it stayed. The room kept moving quietly in its own ordinary way. The curtain moved before I did and reached across my sleeve. The paper lifted once again, then dropped beside the keys. I left the window open there. The latch stayed in my hand. By the time I felt the breeze, the room had felt it first. The curtain rose, the curtain fell. The room stayed open for a while. Beneath the taller trees, it always waited there alone. I passed it nearly every day with no one sitting on the stone. But someone had a paper cup and someone leaned against the rail. A bicycle went through the shade with groceries behind the seat. A dog was pulling toward the grass, another stopped beside the gate. The path that used to hold the heat was carrying a little weight. Everyone was already outside by the time I came around. Someone talking on the bench, someone walking through the shade. A bicycle crossed in front of me. A leash moved through the trees. The park had filled its ordinary seats before I thought to leave. A child was drawing by the curb. Two neighbors stood beside the sign. A jacket rested on a lap, though no one seemed to mind. The fountain made the same old sound. The swings moved lightly in the air. Nothing in the park was new. There were simply people there. I slowed beside the empty space at one end of the longer seat. The wood no longer held the sun the way it did last week. Everyone was already outside by the time I came around. Someone talking on the bench, someone walking through the shade. A bicycle crossed in front of me. A leash moved through the trees. The park had filled its ordinary seats before I thought to leave. The bench had not moved. The path had not changed. The gate kept opening the same familiar way. But every place that stood alone was being used again. One quiet seat beside the trees had turned into a day. Everyone was already outside before I checked the air. Someone reading on the bench, someone waiting by the stairs. A bicycle passed behind the trees. Two dogs crossed at my feet. I found the season in the places people chose to be. The bench stayed full. The gate stayed open. I walked home a little slower. hanging coats and took the leash back down. The hallway still was warm, the sunlight crossed the mat. I almost checked the weather, then left the question there. I found the keys beside the bowl. You stood before the door. My hand stayed on the handle less than it had before. Leash in hand, key in lock. Door swung back down the block. The thought came late, we crossed the gate. I asked if it was still too hot, already in the shade. You stopped beside the corner, then pulled toward the trees. The pavement held the evening without holding back our feet. A bicycle passed slowly, two neighbors crossed the street. I kept the leash a little loose and followed where you led. The doorway looked much farther back than it had yesterday. I could not name the moment we stopped needing to wait. Leash in hand, key in lock. Door swung back down the block. The thought came late, we crossed the gate. I asked if it was still too hot, already in the shade. No hand upon the pavement, no pause beside the frame. You waited once, then stepped ahead, and I did just the same. The door clicked shut behind us, the key stayed in my hand. We reached the end of one short block before I checked the air. Leash in hand, key in lock. Door swung back down the block. The thought came late, we crossed the gate. I nearly asked if it was hot, then let the question pass. The door stayed shut, the leash stayed loose. We took the longer way. We had already crossed the corner before I thought about the heat. You stopped beside a patch of grass, then pulled me toward the trees. The leash was resting in my hand, the keys were deep inside my coat. A bicycle passed near the curb and neither of us slowed. We took the path behind the houses where the fences held the shade. You found a leaf beside the steps and carried it away. We were halfway through the block when the old thought came to mind. I looked down at the pavement, then at the hand beside my side. I didn't check the ground today, not once before we left. We crossed two streets and found the park, I only thought of it then. You stopped to watch a passing dog, I waited by the fence. My palm had never touched the road, not once since we had left. I used to pause beside the gate and lean down near the curb. You learned to wait behind my shoes until I gave the word. But today the door had opened and your steps had started first. By the time I noticed what was gone, we had passed the longer turn. The pavement held the evening light, a little dull and gray. You walked across the open part without pulling toward the shade. We were farther from the house than I had planned to go. The leash was loose between us and the air moved through my clothes. I didn't check the ground today, not once before we left. We crossed 2 streets and found the park. I only thought of it then. You stopped to watch a passing dog. I waited by the fence. My palm had never touched the road, not once since we had left. You drank beside the fountain, then shook the water off. I moved my hand into my pocket while you started down the path. We passed the warmest stretch of road and took the corner slow. The hand that used to test the ground stayed wrapped around the rope. I didn't check the ground today. The thought arrived too late. We had taken every shaded turn and passed the garden gate. You walked ahead, I followed close. The block was almost done. My hand stayed resting on the leash until we made it home. I hung the leash beside the door and looked once at my empty palm. I left the window open while I cleared the plates. The water ran across the sink. The room began to change. A song was playing softly from somewhere near the shelf. The curtain touched the wooden frame, then settled by itself. I dried the cups and put them back. The light above the stove was all the room was using by the time the daylight closed. I carried one more glass away and turned the music down. A bicycle crossed beneath the window, then disappeared from sound. The window stayed open after dark while the evening filled the room. I read another page beneath the lamp and never thought to move. The dishes dried beside the sink. The curtain crossed the floor. The night had entered quietly and I never closed the door. You slept beside the table with your head against the chair. A neighbor called from down the block, then footsteps left the stairs. The book grew heavier in my hands. The clock moved past the hour. A cooler draft reached through the room and shifted one loose paper. I stood to change the record, then sat back where I had been. The window stayed exactly as it was, with night coming through the screen. The hallway light was turned off. The kitchen had gone still. I heard the leaves beyond the glass move lightly near the sill. The window stayed open after dark while the evening filled the room. I read another page beneath the lamp and never thought to move. The dishes dried beside the sink. The curtain crossed the floor. The night had entered quietly and I never closed the door. I filled your water one more time and placed the book face down. The music reached its final track. The fan had stopped by now. I checked the lock beside the door, then crossed the hallway slow. The window was the only thing I did not think to close. The window stayed open past dark until the room was almost black. The final song had ended, but the night kept coming in. The dishes waited by the sink. The book stayed on the chair. I turned the lamp off near the bed and left the window there. The curtain moved across the frame. The window stayed open. left my shoes beside the door and dropped the keys into the bowl. The paper bag was nearly empty, except for one receipt. You waited by the kitchen sink until I filled your water up. The hallway held the evening air without the fan turned on. I folded up the shopping bag and placed the mail beside the chair. The ordinary end of day was settling everywhere. I checked my pockets one more time for something I had missed, a coin of folded paper and one unremarkable thought. The heat never came up today, not waiting at the light, not walking through the open street or standing outside. I never searched for somewhere cool or counted down the sun. It only crossed my mind at home when all of it was done. The glass beside the window had no water running down. I changed my shirt and washed my hands, then turned the hallway light out. You circled twice beside the couch and settled near my feet. The day had left a little dust along the edge of both my sleeves. I tried to name the afternoon from where I stood at night. There had been traffic, errands, and a long walk home, but nothing in the hours before had asked me to complain. The thought I used to carry had not followed me all day. The heat never came up today, not waiting at the light, not walking through the open street or standing outside. I never searched for somewhere cool or counted down the sun. It only crossed my mind at home when all of it was done. I remembered how I used to stop before I reached the gate, how every plan began with checking how long we had to wait. But today it moved from place to place without that question there. I only found the missing thought while changing for the night. The heat never came up today, it stayed outside the frame. The hours passed through ordinary things without me saying its name. The keys were resting in the bowl, you slept beside the door. I stood there trying to remember what I had worried for. The lights went out, the room stayed cool. The thought came late, then left again. The leash was lying by the keys, I picked them both up on the way. You heard the metal touch the bowl and stood before I called your name. I checked the pocket of my coat, then pulled the hallway light off. You waited while I tied one shoe and leaned against the wall. There was no reason to prepare, no weather left to read. I opened up the door and you walked out ahead of me. The neighbor's television played behind the second floor screen. We crossed beneath the porch light at our ordinary speed. We took the usual turn, you stopped beside the tree. I kept the leash between two fingers, loose enough to lead. No plan beyond the corner, no reason to be late. We walked because the door was there, and evening filled the street. You knew which side the bicycles would use beside the park. I moved us closer to the fence before they passed in front. The benches still had people, the fountain still was on. Someone folded up a newspaper while we kept walking on. You paused beneath the taller tree, then chose the longer route. I followed with without checking how far it took us from the house. The leash made one small curve between your collar and my hand. Nothing in the evening needed more than what it had. We took the usual turn. You stopped beside the tree. I kept the leash between two fingers, loose enough to lead. No plan beyond the corner, no reason to be late. We walked because the door was there, and evening filled the street. The walk had once required a careful hour and place, a hand against the pavement, a pause beside the gate. Tonight I only carried the keys inside my coat. You moved a little farther, and I let the leash go loose. We took the usual turn and past the garden wall. You knew the way around the block without my help at all. The porch light found us coming back. The key went in the door. We walked because it was the time we always walked before. The leash went by the keys. You crossed the hallway floor. Tomorrow at the usual time, we'll do the same once more. I left the house in short sleeves, the way I had all week. The sun was resting on the roofs, but not against the street. I crossed toward the coffee shop and ordered what I knew. The plastic cup was cold enough to leave my fingers damp. The door swung shut behind me, a bus moved through the light. I carried summer in my hand without deciding why. A paper sleeve was offered. I said I didn't need it, then stepped beneath the narrow shade and waited by the sign. The cup was colder than the air until it wasn't anymore. A little wind moved past the stop and reached my open arms. I changed the drink from hand to hand and stood closer to the wall. The day still looked like summer, but it didn't feel that warm. A woman near the timetable pulled both sleeves across her hands. Someone zipped a canvas jacket while looking down the road. The ice kept shifting in my cup each time a car went by. I watched the water leave a ring along the concrete ledge. The trees were still completely green, the sky was clear and wide. Nothing in the afternoon had changed enough to name, but every time the shadow moved across my shoulder blades, I folded one arm over one and waited for the bus. The cup was colder than the air until it wasn't anymore. A little wind moved past the stop and reached my open arms. I changed the drink from hand to hand and stood closer to the wall. The day still looked like summer, but it didn't feel that warm. I had dressed for yesterday without thinking it had passed. The order came from habit, the sleeves were chosen fast. No calendar had warned me, no forecast changed the plan. The season found the empty space between the cup and hand. The cup was colder than the air, then the air caught up at last. The bus arrived beside the curb and opened both its doors. I held the drink against my chest and took the window seat. The day still looked like summer from behind glass. Tomorrow I may take a jacket or order something warm. Tonight I carried ice with bare arms. leash was hanging by the door. I took it down without a thought. You waited while I found the keys, then crossed the hall before I called. I turned the lock and stepped outside. You pulled toward the usual tree. The pavement held the evening light, and nothing held our feet. My hand went nowhere near the ground. It only held the loop. You stopped beside the garden wall, then chose the longer route. We walked the block the ordinary way. You knew each tree and turn. A bicycle passed behind the fence. The porch lights slowly burned. I never checked the street below, or asked how long we'd stay. The evening carried both of us the ordinary way. You paused beside the corner shop, then crossed toward the park. The benches still had people there. The fountain met the dark. A neighbor waved across the road. Someone closed a gate. You followed every familiar smell without a need to wait. The leash made one loose curve between your collar and my hand. I let you stop beneath the trees as often as you planned. We walked the block the ordinary way. You knew each tree and turn. A bicycle passed behind the fence. The porch lights slowly burned. I never checked the street below, or asked how long we'd stay. The evening carried both of us the ordinary way. No date was written down for this. No one had marked the change. The leash stayed loose between my fingers as we crossed the street again. We walked the block the ordinary way, and took the longer side. You moved ahead beneath the trees. I followed close behind. I never checked the street below. The question never came. The evening came soon enough, without me watching when the key went in. The door swung wide. The leash went back beside the light.